In this video, I wanted to talk about my workflow editing as a demonstration of several concepts that relate to processing. One of the greatest things with Pro Tools in the latest versions is something called clip gain. Clip gain is a way to do mixing, but the thing about it that's really unique is rather than just a normal volume graph, you can actually see the adjustments that you're making. It will actually raise the volume and raise the height of the waveform. Another thing that's great about clip gain is it's actually pre-processing. So when you do your processing, when you do your compression, it's going to be more even across the whole thing and give it more of a tonal character as opposed to only processing the loudest parts. It's not quite as bad in this clip as it is in others, but what I can see on some of these is I'm a very dynamic speaker because I'm not a professional voice talent person. I get in there with the clip gain line and I could do surgical volume changes here. If I want to look at the clip gain line, I would go to View, Clip, and then Gain Line. There's another thing called Clip Gain Info. Clip Gain Info allows you to turn up and down an entire clip, whereas Clip Gain Line allows you to be more surgical with it. You can go to View, you can go to Clip, and then you can go to Gain Info. That shows up as a little fader in the bottom left. These can also be turned on and off using key commands as well. All of the key commands that are associated with clip gain have the modifier keys Control and Shift in them. That's a great thing to remember for the test. If you get overwhelmed with questions about clip-based gain, just remember that the key command always has Control and Shift in it. So to turn on and off the clip gain line, you can hold down Control and Shift and then hit the minus key on a Mac. You can hold down Control and Shift with the equals key, and that will turn on and off the clip gain info down here in the corner. The clip gain info allows me to take the whole clip and I could raise it up by a certain amount. With the clip gain line, what I would do is I would look at the dynamics of the waveform. I would listen to it as well, but I can see that these parts are not quite as loud as other parts. So I can bring those up and it will. One of the most important things for me. So you can go in here and be really surgical with it. If you can remember that the modifier keys for this always have Control and Shift in it, that's going to be a big help to you. For example, if you want to cut the automation here, to cut it, of course, it is Control Shift X, and then it goes away. If I wanted to copy it, Control Shift C. If I wanted to nudge this, I would use Control Shift plus or minus, allows me to nudge clip-based gain. This is a neat little trick because it is both pre-fader and pre-processing. Once I have my dialogue where I want it with clip-based gain, what I do is I render the clip gain. So if I right-click on my clip, I have a choice to go to clip gain, and then I render the clip. It will take the variations that I made in my clip-based gain line and actually apply them to the original one, and then it zeroes out the line for me. The next step that I normally do is I go in and do noise reduction. There's two major types of processing, and now there's a third type, which is actually new and exciting as well. You have Audio Suite. Audio Suite are rendered plugins. So this actually happens to the clip. It is applied to the clip. It doesn't take any processing after it's actually been completed and applied to the clip. So to find the thing that you want, you could go up to Audio Suite, and there are all the same plugins that work in real time also work in Audio Suite. The one that I use in Audio Suite is noise reduction because it is such a processor intensive plugin, and it also can't work fast enough to stay in sync. So it doesn't even really try. You have a different level of control and a different level of accuracy, a different level of quality on the rendered plugin. So I'll go through and I'll actually do this and then render this plugin before I do anything else. The problem with rendered sound effects is it's permanent. And once you've done it, If you decide you don't like it later, you have to dig out the original file and maybe you have to re-edit it to get it back to the place where you started. So there is a little bit of a destructive element to Audio Suite plugins. Once I have the noise out of my voiceover session, I will go through and I'll do real-time processing. This is done either over inserts or sends based on the type of plugin that you're using. So you can see that I have a standard setup, each one of these other tracks. And I could get to that standard setup using a track preset. So if I click on the track title to recall track preset, and then down at the bottom, I have this thing called VoiceOver Noisy House, and it brings in my plugins. On every Pro Tools track, you have 10 inserts and 10 sends. Hopefully you don't need that many. Inserts are generally used for volume-based plugins like compressors, which handle dynamic range, and EQ, which allows you to turn up the volume of certain frequencies. You want the entire signal to go through your insert and your processor. The signal flow through your insert starts from the top and then goes sequentially through the bottom. Sends, on the other hand, is used for time-based processing, like delays, reverbs, choruses, flangers. These things you want to have a wet to dry ratio. In nature, you hear direct and reflected sound. So you don't want everything to go through your reverb. You only want a part of your signal. So what these do is they actually create a copy. There's one other type of processing, which is new and exciting, and you can access it by clicking on this. This is called clip effects. Rather than using a real-time plugin, I can actually have a plugin that's associated with just this clip. It only works with EQ and dynamics right now. If there was another sound file on this track, this first one says EQ in the upper left-hand corner, and this one doesn't. What that's saying is this one is being processed by that, but this one is not. In the corner, if I'm using clip effects, you'll see that it has this little symbol that says Dyne and EQ. The neat thing about this is you could bypass it. So you could bypass the whole thing. You can also reach the bypass by right-clicking on the clip. Go to Clip Effects and go to Unbypass. The last thing that is worth knowing is I can actually render all of these things together. I can do something called committing. And what it does is it renders everything that is being done to that track, including clip gain and clip effects, including inserts, including sends as well. But remember, the thing about rendering is it's permanent. So maybe I have 3 plugins and I might want to change my EQ later. But I know that I like my gate and I know that I like my compressor limiter. I can right-click the second insert. I can commit up to this insert. It will bring up this window here. I can do this either to the entire track or just a part of the track. So right now, I just want it on that one file. If I have multiple clips, I can consolidate them into one. I can render the automation as well if I want. And what it does by default, if I do the entire track, it will hide it and then it will make it inactive. So watch what happens. The name of this file was IO window A1, but now it has a .cm at the end. If I go up to my tracks and I look at the names, I can see that there is a grayed out track up here that's been hidden. So it's not a destructive thing. It actually saves what it was before, but if you have a lot of processor intensive plugins, things like auto-tune or convolution reverbs or a lot of waves plugins, this frees up that DSP power to use for other things. And you can always go back and use it again. When you hide and make inactive, it frees up the processing power.